I suspect that it's my fault we didn't do an episode this week at a proper time. I'm sure that you probably sent me an email that I missed about time
Yeah,
zones and when we're supposed
totally.
to.
Yeah, sure did.
I
Sent you the emails and tweets and Facebook messages, um,
I feel like if you're gonna
MySpace.
I feel like if you're gonna do communication over email, I mean, you just have such a nasty habit, Austin, and I don't want to put you on blast on the show, but of encapsulating something that may or may not be important, like just with a lot of other stuff around it. And maybe that's on me for not thoroughly going line by line through my email and taking notes and like understanding it, but I feel like if you're gonna tell me that we have to record the show earlier, you can't put it like in the middle of your blog. And
I thought you would be very interested about how my date was and about my mother's recipe for salmon casserole. And then midway through, I was just like, boop, boop, enter, enter. And then I put in a little like, hey, just so you know, we should actually do the podcast on Monday night like we normally do. And then,
yeah,
love Austin.
all things considered, definitely my fault. So I mean, I just maybe a note, like an independent message or tweet, or maybe like something you could talk about to the group as a whole for the more than two of I don't know. I'm just trying to I'm trying to shift some blame off of me for not having the good reading skills. You know what would be really weird though, if
Mm-hmm.
not every person involved with our podcast recording got the same email. That would be that would be tumultuous. Luckily, I know that our
Yeah,
group is pretty small in terms of people who need to
true,
know this
true.
critical information. But it would be really weird if not every person even got your long-winded, convoluted email. That would just be absurd. So I don't know if you forgot to copy someone on it,
That's a banger intro. Oh, well done, Joey. I
dude.
did not know where you were going with that. And then when it hit me hard. Ooh, just like ESL got hit real hard this week. My God.
Dude,
It's
there's
been a week.
okay. So hear me out, everybody. Let me give a little bit of background. I'm sure that people understand the analogy that's going on there. If not, we'll get into it. I'm sorry that there was not a show at the normal time this week. It is actually my fault because I fell asleep too early and we didn't communicate that I was tired or that we should have recorded the show earlier. We're across the world. These things happen sometimes. I'm surprised it's only really happened, I guess, twice now, but like, whatever. And, when I was in bed waiting for Cap to wake up, thinking, oh, we can still probably do a podcast on Monday night, I was thinking, like, man, what are we even gonna talk about? I guess I got some stories that I could tell. Like, we can shoot the shit like we normally do. Sometimes we always manage to pull an hour out of our ass, even though, like,
Uh-huh.
really in terms of Dota, there's like less than 10 minutes of things to talk about. But I was just sitting there Monday evening, being like, I don't know, I don't know what we have to talk about. I fall asleep. I wake up in the morning to multiple Discord messages from Cappy and like, hey, you up? You want to record? And the answer was no. So, we didn't do a show. And then Tuesday happens. And let me tell you what happens on Tuesday. Let me tell you what happens on Tuesday. Alliance release their weekly vlog, which shows plain as day, edited in their own content in their own YouTube channel, that PPD, who was Alliance's new coach, was in game with Alliance commenting on the game state, saying things like, hey y'all, should probably check your ancient, it's under attack. Now let me stop there, because this story is going to extrapolate. But does that editor get fired?
Well, I mean, in this situation, no. Um, because he had to have gotten permission from the higher ups, right, to be able to put this out. And obviously, Alliance's current story, and I think in some ways it does check out, is that they weren't trying to hide it, and they released it themselves. So that's pretty good evidence that they weren't trying to hide it. So no, absolutely not.
Absolutely, I agree with
Unless they
that.
were trying to hide it, in which case that was a pretty big fuck up. But there's no reason to suspect that they were.
There's no reason at all to suspect that they were. I think that Kelly even said on Twitter that like, yeah, like our Alliance Discord knew, so like their 3 fans they have in there were like, oh, cool. But I was thinking about like I was thinking about how much more S&P I do at Liquid on our own videos. And I would just love to know like if that was like watched down in a conscious decision or if that was like an oopsie of them releasing that, because I can make a case in my head for it to be either way, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But so Alliance releases a video that very much shows PPD being a 6-man on a Dota team in a video called During a Game as a Coach. This gets posted to Reddit because someone who had keen eyes noticed it and thought to share it. Mind you, apparently it's been known in the Alliance community for a while and no one has talked about it, or like this is just something that someone noticed who was watching a vlog that really doesn't even get that many views, which I do not want to say is a shitty thing. I'm saying that as a point of fact. Like that I'll throw more shade at Alliance. That's not
I will say that is a shame, because what I really don't hope is like content like that goes, like, players already don't want to do that content. They already don't want to share their comms and anything. And if this is just one more reason not to, like that, it is a shame that content in general, Dota content, doesn't get consumed more. But stuff like that is pretty cool.
Alliance is one of the few teams that actually do anything at all, so I wish that they got more support in that regard, right? So someone posted to Reddit, and now it's like, how sometimes you can just tell when drama is gonna happen. You just like something in your brain goes,
yeah,
oops,
yeah.
That happened. Like the red
Cat's
siren
out of the
drama.
box.
Blinky,
yeah,
big Blinky drama, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knoxville, God bless his soul, who was apparently just at the ready, became Reddit detective number 1 with any shred of credibility, right? And starts doing some research on the ground and updates. And people, this is a hot developing situation that is bumbling up in the comments of this one thread of this one vlog. And people are going, is this okay? This isn't okay. Is this okay? This isn't okay. What's going on, right? And eventually, the consensus, based on, other team managers and inside information, is that everyone comes to the conclusion that Alliance is doing nothing wrong because ESL, and by association DreamHack, changed the rules between Season 1 and Season 2, where they removed the clause about having a coach in-game active with the players.
Basically saying that the coaches, the line was that the coaches could not interact with the players during the actual game. After the draft, they could not interact with the players, and they took that line out.
They took it out, right?
Yeah.
So now the conversation gets into a murky place, right? Because Alliance has a bunch of evidence that they are not cheating or doing anything wrong. They are abiding by the rules the tournament organizer gave them.
Yep.
But I feel like, and this is where I start to want to comment and get involved and try and see what's going on. I feel like this is now going against the norms and spirit of the game that people have been playing for over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost feels like someone is being exploitative, but they're not. Alliance is not being exploitative. They're just following the rules, which is fine and shrewd, but it feels bad.
Yeah.
It feels really, it feels not right. And what starts to happen is which I thought was super interesting, is that if you would have asked me to look at a crystal ball and guess how people are going to respond to this, I would have said, oh, people are going to put them on the stake and roast them on the spit. That's what I was looking for. On the spit and roast them over an open fire, because even though they are following the letter of the law right here, I don't think it's necessarily right in the spirit, and I think that honor means something. I
Oh,
was
see, I knew that wasn't gonna happen.
I
I
was
knew that wasn't
wrong.
gonna happen
I
at
was
all.
so wrong, and
You were made
everybody
wrong.
just fucking leaped to go form a fucking Spartan blockade around Loda and be like, "Hey guys, they're just following the rules," and I'm like,
Yep.
"Huh, I think I'm on the outside here."
Yes. Part of the reason that this does happen was because to finish some of the timeline here, this all comes out. Alliance plays a game against Tundra. They win. There's an interview
This comes
done
out during the
immediately
game with
afterwards.
Tundra.
Yeah. Immediately afterwards, Notail puts some tweets out there that were
Do you want to read it?
ill-advised. Uh, God, I just typed in okay, OG underscore BD Notail follows you.
It's a weird flex. You done
Let's
to
see.
that
We'll,
point, but
we'll,
okay.
we'll no. I'm sorry. I was adding to that. We'll see how long he follows me if he hears what I have to say on this episode. Scrolling down. Wait. He calls them cheaters. For whatever reason, I'm not seeing it. Did he delete it?
Did he delete it?
Did he delete the tweet?
I didn't know he deleted the tweet, potentially. I believe he calls them, without having the exact quote in front of me, he both calls them cheaters and also pussies.
Yes. Cheaters are big pussies. Which obviously is pussies, just with a funny accent. Having a coach during a Dota game has never been allowed. That is true. Zero respect for people that cheat. Same thing when people macros and claim it's not against the rules, or I still have to know when to use it. LOL. Mention concept to Valve, TI9. They said no. Cheaters are big pussies. He calls them pussies. And he calls them cheaters, which is way over the line. Because Alliance is not, they are not cheaters. They are 100% not cheaters. They did something that perhaps is underhanded, and I'll explain why. But they are absolutely not cheaters, and that goes way over the line. It goes way so far over the line that naturally there's going to be a snapback, and that's why I think so much of the community did hardcore defend Alliance, because a prominent member of the community stepped too far past the line in reprimanding them. And so naturally, people, the way you see that, you see somebody over punished, therefore you want to come to their defense, right? I think that's a very big reason why people backed Alliance. Also, I think there is some context that is missing from the community about how these teams operate and how they communicate with each other. That is also something missing. And there's also context about honor within the Dota community because Valve does not institute a whole lot of rules. So there are certain things that do just kind of go by gentleman's rules. And I think certain old school Dota players more so have bought into that idea and therefore have a very negative reaction when they find out somebody isn't abiding by the same rules that they thought they were abiding by.
It's like an unwritten code of conduct.
It is indeed absolutely an unwritten rule that is being broken here. So, where do we want to start with all this? Okay, let me talk about the context. Let me talk about the context. I will try and explain all the context that goes into this. So I'll start with Valve. First of all, it has been an established narrative for a long time that Valve has been strictly against coaches. They have always been against coaches. They have only given in to coaches because of teams pushing for it. As far as this is all my understanding of events. I can't say it's 100% concrete, but as far as I know, teams have pushed for coach involvement in the draft. Right? That is the thing that makes sense. And Valve eventually did relinquish to that demand, that request, not a demand, but a request. It eventually did allow them in the draft, but they have strictly against ever being allowing them inside of the booth during the game. And most Dota players, if not like literally like 99% of them, as far as I know, would agree that having a coach during the game is not something that is good for the game and you should not have it. And I don't really think that
It
any
changes the game.
teams push for it. Yeah, when Notail says he asked Valve about that fact, I feel like he is what he asked if that is ever a future, if that's something they ever considered. Period. Not something as in like I want this. I would like to have a coach in game. I don't think that's what he is asking for. As far as I understand, particularly given his follow up tweets about how Dota's always been a 5-man game and it always should be, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think there have been hardly any teams or players who have ever pushed for that. And you can see that line, that narrative extends over to CS:GO as well, where, as far as I understand it, Valve has been very reluctant in allowing coaches, and it's only because of the pressure of the CS:GO teams that they push for it that they allowed coaches inside like part of the game where they can communicate during timeouts and that sort of thing. They're not supposed to be able to communicate during matches. I think there's rules like they can high five and stuff, but they can't say anything to their players. There's like kind of strict, weird rules like that, and that is something that they gave in to teams, and then like this cheating scandal and stuff. Like Valve now has a reason to dial that back more. They have a reason now to say, see, we never wanted coaches to be a part of this. We think this is a 5-on-5 game, and to be able to pull that back. That has always been Valve's MO. They really firmly believe that like less coaching is for the better of the scene. And I would definitely agree when it comes to the Dota side. I think we reached a perfect balance where coaches being part of the draft is a great balance. In fact, it leads to great moments where at TI9, we have the coach in the booth. They do their thing. They come out. We get a pre-game interview, post-draft, pre-game, right as we're about to go into things. That was sick entertainment. That made for some sick moments. I really appreciated it. I thought that added to the entire show so much, right? I think it's perfect balance. So the context is this has always been set. Players, Valve, everybody has always kind of known that coaches are not a part of this thing. Okay, so there is a lot of history that goes into that fact. So that's context number one, let's say. Another context is how these teams do communicate with each other. These teams, particularly the European teams, frequently communicate with each other about rule sets, about accommodations at majors. They work together to be able to push tournament organizers for better accommodations, higher prize pools. They have a union, an agreement of sorts, work like not actual formal, but they work together on these things. They talk to each other about these things, and this was something that obviously Alliance did not bring up to the other teams and the other players. And then a third bit of context, I mean, really, this is just empathy, but I think it's pretty clear. Notail feels like people really lash back on Notail really hard, and I think that's unfair, even though I agree Notail went too far. Is that from Notail's perspective, I'm almost 100% certain. He looks at this and says, if I saw that, I would have said something to everybody. I would have said something to everybody else, and I wouldn't have gotten a coach. I would have talked to everybody else, and I would have said, "Hey, do you guys think this rule makes sense? I don't know why this is the thing. Like, are you guys gonna get one? If so, like, if this is gonna be the future, then maybe we'll get one too. Whatever." But like that's why he has such a harsh reaction, right? Because he's playing by that gentleman's unwritten rule where if he saw something, he would have said something. Now, we don't know that for sure, but in our own heads, we always think that, right? We always think that we would be honorable, and we would stand up and say something, right?
Yeah, I think that that's kind of also where things start to get a little bit murky, right? Is because there isn't and there will never be full transparency on who knew what and who
Yep.
employed what and what the
Yep.
conversations between Secret Enigma lie. I mean, if you're talking about EU teams also, like, and you're talking about like this almost union of sorts, what you're thinking there is Secret Enigma, OG, Alliance, Liquid. Maybe you
All the
also
big
toss
dogs.
EG in there, who would like happily work with
Yeah,
them.
throw a line over the Atlantic and see how the only team you care about is doing.
Yeah, stuff like that. Like we don't know all those behind the scene details, which do add
Hmm.
some conjure and some subjectivity to this, right? Notail, I think, should be properly chastised for one, literally committing libel.
Yes,
like
very much so.
like if someone really wanted to, and I don't know how international law works in Europe, if this was American on American action and Alliance was petty enough, I think that they have a very solid case to literally take him to court. Um, for
Probably.
that,
Probably,
like,
yeah.
no hyperbole.
Yeah.
Um, also, I think calling other people pussies is a little less than woke. No tail. Set a better example.
I mean, it's there's at least woke things that are said. So
um,
they
no,
yeah.
but I don't kid, but I also kid. The first point's more important, but the second point is also serious.
Hmm.
The community lashes back. They snap back at Notail, which make them defend Alliance even more. And
Hmm.
now we're in this limbo period where it's nighttime. ESL hasn't said anything. Valve hasn't said anything. We're not sure, like, what's the situation? Like, was this really. The narrative is becoming, well, this was communicated through an email. That's why it was okay. Which, as an aside, great timeless memes were born this week. Great timeless Dota
Just put it in
memes.
an email.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you not? You probably didn't read my email. You didn't get that memo? I emailed it to you. Like, great timeless Dota memes. And I
Hmm.
know that, like, I think that people are pulling this out of like something Suns fan was saying, that teams never read their emails.
Yeah.
I think that this is a somewhat serious issue in the sense that, if people aren't conducting proper business, like an email business communication from ESL about rule sets should be more than adequate to talk about this stuff. And people should treat this stuff like a business and like business communication. I
Yep.
kind of agree that, if ESL is communicating this through email, yeah, that's totally fine. Like, that's how the world in business works, right? Now, I think that you can totally criticize the fact that this is apparently a small line in an email that is overall about other stuff. I think that this is a more important point than something that could be buried inside of a larger body of text, right? Like, this is
Hmm.
something that is so major that it needs to be its own standalone thing, and I don't think ESL communicated that well, at least our understanding of the situation, right? Also, on top of that, I've heard rumors, which again, rumors, that not every team manager received this correspondence from ESL.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Which is you can't
That's
see
a
on the
fuck
podcast what
up
I'm
and a
doing,
half.
but my face is just baffled. And I'm making a lot of
Yeah.
wide arm movements because that's
Yeah.
where it becomes even more problematic for ESL. Not only was it communicated poorly, allegedly, it also wasn't communicated to everyone, allegedly.
Yeah.
And now they're breaking what is an unwritten rule of Dota, which was later confirmed by Valve that it is an unwritten rule of Dota the morning after, when ESL had to release a tweet changing their rule set. Because
Mhm.
one could assume the only reason that happens is because Valve calls up ESL and goes, "Hey, you fucked up."
Hey,
Click.
numbnuts. What the fuck did you just do?
Dude, it's wild that I have a lot of I guess understanding for people who were violently upset like Notail. I think there's a reason for Notail to be upset. I think there's a reason for Seb to be upset. I think there's a reason
Yeah.
why teams would be mad at Alliance for
Yeah.
breaking this unwritten rule. They did
And
nothing
you
wrong.
say teams that is plural. OG are the ones who naturally stood up and said something because, well, that's just kind of what they do. I'm not expecting Kuro to hit up the Twitters, you know. But as far as I know, there are multiple teams that are quite angry about this. I do know there are also other teams who saw this line and either
No bounty
chose
hunter.
not to do anything with it. Yeah, right. And like that. So there are fuck ups all around here, right? They're the teams not reading their emails. Like holy shit, man. Like what? You literally have teams that like are literal just 5 players who managed to read this rule change, and somehow your organization could not, with all its support, could not. Like that's a fuck up, right? You've got Notail fucking up hard. You've got Alliance doing something a bit underhanded. You've got Valve fucking up because they don't have a DPC rule set that extends across the regions, because that is just the way Valve does things. They tend to be way hands off on these things and like to be able to only step in when there is a problem. Once you do something unreasonable, once you do something bad, then they're going to be like, all right, I guess we're going to need rule set against that. So I think even Valve has like their small share of a fuck up, but like nobody fucked up more than ESL/DreamHack. Nobody fucked up more than them.
Can I have a small aside here
Yeah.
that knowing that I think and agree that ESL/DreamHack are the most culpable people here, which also has to be a little weird for you to say that because they're literally employing you and paying your rent right now.
Mm.
I know that you're fine, but like still they're like that is true. I would be surprised that they weren't cringing or trying to avoid Sheever being an investigative journalist on stream live, because I just think, imagine that this is happening with PGL and PGL. Imagine this whole thing you shifted over from PGL from ESL to PGL, right? And now
Uh-huh.
Sheever's on the PGL stream, essentially talking poorly about the company.
Yeah.
That's not gonna fly. I think.
Yeah, there is some. Okay, so a little bit more context. So there is multiple reasons why I feel free to say what I just did. Why Sheever felt free to be an investigative journalist for a tournament
Big
that she
props to
is
her, by the
currently
way.
hosting for. Yeah, absolutely. Some of that context is like ESL especially, DreamHack a bit so as well. For people who don't, they're under a same parent company called
Mm-hmm.
MTG. So that is why they're so tightly tied together. But ESL and somewhat DreamHack are very very hands off. Um, and this is also part of the reason why some of these fuck ups occur, because they're hands off when it comes to this sort of stuff. Because I straight up don't think they have Dota people. That I think that this
Doesn't
sort of
DreamHack
thing.
have Kennegat?
ESL does.
ESL does.
ESL has Kennegat, but he's like so far up the food chain. I don't think he even like ESL one used to be his baby back when he first hired me. But he's so far up the food chain that I'm not sure if he how much like
Fair,
paying
fair.
attention now. I'm sure, but right, and they just don't have Dota people, right? They just don't. And this is why like part of the reason why this rule change occurs in the first place, because one of the reasons they said themselves is they made this rule change to be in line with other games, other esports.
Wild.
If you know anything about Dota, that you know this rule set is very different than what it is in being in CS:GO. right? It's way different from like the coaches not being allowed to talk during the rounds on a LAN, but then because you can't enforce it or whatever, you're saying, okay, in this online era, like we can't know if you guys are doing it, so like you're gonna be allowed to do it. Everyone can do it because it's an unenforceable rule or whatever. Uh, like if you know anything about Dota, you know that this is like incredibly game changing. But you don't have people who know Dota, but you're making rule sets about Dota. Like that is just a problem. And that is a problem of like being a giant esports company, right? Is that you are the ideal world, the way like a big company like this would work is that yeah, they would like to be able to have just one rule set that fits all. They would like to be able to have graphics that fit all, storylines that fit all, right? Because it's efficient in that regard. But so much of the time, like me, the talent, and like the people we're directly working with backstage, we're like running the entire show. There is not a whole bunch of oversight. Because Dota is just its own thing in its own pocket universe, and you show up if there's a big problem, but otherwise you're just trying to like get that thing going and let it run.
The You said something that's interesting to me, in the fact that it is a unenforceable rule.
Yes.
And while I agree that you could always find a way around it. You can check out, JJ's tweets, who has talked a bit about it. You can find a way around it if you want to intentionally do so.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're putting the onus on them to actually do so and choose to cheat, right?
Yes.
Also, other games have solves for this, right? Riot, when you're playing League of Legends, which is probably the closest analog here naturally, has a referee in the voice comm chat with the players.
Yep.
CSGO has cameras in the playroom.
Yep.
To see the team and the coaches and what's going on behind the monitor. Those are just two examples of potential solutions. Now, Dota teams...
Oh, sorry, keep going. No, maybe you're going where I want you to go.
Dota teams refuse to have... Is where you want to go?
Yes.
Dota teams refuse to have a coach, or not a coach. They clearly don't refuse to have a coach, am I right? They refuse to have like an admin or a referee with them in voice comms because the information that happens in the voice comms is arguably the difference between like potentially winning or losing the international. Example, imagine a referee knew that OG wanted to play Carry Wisp at TI9. And then maybe they share that information for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that person costs OG a back-to-back international. Maybe. Yeah. That's, worst case scenario theory crafting, right? So teams refuse to share that with other people because of trust issues and because of how valuable that information is.
Yeah.
I agree with that in theory. They also
refuse to use webcams half the time.
Yes, they also refuse to use webcams half the time.
So these are battles that tournament organizers and teams have had going back and forth for quite some time, and it is possible that battle spilled out in this whole rule set change.
I empathize for teams who think that is impossible and a complete non-starter for them. But again, my counterpoint is, well, how's that different than what they do with League of Legends?
I mean, I think to be 100% fair, I think Dota is a game that is far more important when it comes to the overall strategy aspect of the game. Information is king in Dota, whereas smaller tactics, but mostly individual player skill, is what really shines in League of Legends. I always make the comparison that Dota is about a strategy game and League of Legends is a skill-based game. They both have elements, of course, of both of those intertwined, but it's also part of the reason why League of Legends is way more fun to play just like casually because you have the ability to do cool things and it's all based off of your own skill. Where Dota's like, sorry, you got fucking black holed, son. Nothing you can do about it. And you're just like, what the fuck is this bullshit? And the way to counter it is overall bigger arching strategy. That is how you counter that. League of Legends wouldn't put up with that kind of bullshit because it's just like, what the fuck? What do you mean I could be 100 to 0'd with no counterplay?
Also, the draft hero pool in League is so much smaller and restricted
Yes.
that you don't just have like a
big part
pocket
of that, yeah.
thing that could be totally game changing, right? So there are totally caveats to the argument. I think that that argument in general is going to be revisited if this becomes a problem. Something else along this whole topic that I think is super interesting is a lot of people assuming without any evidence that other teams were participating in this, which makes it okay. And while we don't really know either way, because to my knowledge, no one else has said, oh, we were also doing this, I would be pretty confident in saying that I don't think any other teams in Division 1 was doing it. That is big asterisks speculation.
Yeah, Joey would have no idea about that information.
No one does. No one does unless
does,
they say it or unless their editor accidentally shows it, right? But
even like a player like literally on a team wouldn't know other teams whether or not they're doing it or not, right? So
correct. And maybe I suspect that because Alliance was not in the slightest seen as the bad people here, or they can't be prosecuted because they were literally following the rules. I think that would have given amnesty for anyone else who wanted to go, oh, well, I mean, we were also abiding by this rule. But no one wanted to come out and say it for maybe a bunch of reasons. But I really,
it would ruin your relationship with other teams for sure.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of players are very mindful of that relationship with other players and other teams because you never know. You don't want to piss Puppy off or Kuro off. What if you're on this tundra or whatever and like you look good on that team? What if next year after TI Kuro hits you up and says, hey, I want you? Like that's your chance to win TI right there, right? So those sort of things players do have a mind for sure.
So no one else is saying they did it, and I really don't think anyone else was.
Yeah, no, 100%. That is why we had. So all this is going on. We're of course talking about it in the green room, and we're talking about what are we going to ask Alliance? Like we are actively, to be clear, we are actively wanting Alliance to win because
I wasn't. Fuck. God damn it. It would have been so much better for me if they lost.
There's a very interesting narrative going on here, right? Like, we may have like personal feelings about it, but that post-game interview, that's going to be great content. And Shiver is going over like whether or not, I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly, but she may have been going over whether or not she was going to ask these questions or not, like how hard in these questions is she going to go. And I knew that I personally was going to definitely throw a hardball. And yeah, because I think it's like it's an interesting bit. And I personally 100% believe that I would not be doing my job as talent if I did not ask a straight to the point, hard to answer question about this entire thing. I mean, this is like hot news. People want to know about this. And I think in some ways as a storyteller, like I should be asking those questions. Like fucking Christ, I can't be so like bothered by my potential relationship with a player that I do my job incorrectly, right? That I can't, like, people always talk about this in Dota, and I do think it's a bit of a problem, but like mostly because community as a whole We just tend to give players like a lot of leeway in these sort of things, but like talent cannot keep an idea of what the players think of them and do their job correctly, right? If your job as an analyst is to criticize what a guy did, you think he fucked up, then you should say that, right? And so, this goes into this, right? Hot rumor. We should ask the questions about it. And Cheever, as you said, did play a little bit of investigative journalist, and she asked hard questions. And you know what's funny is that like we actually got Limp. We specifically requested Limp, and the reason why was because we thought he would answer the best. He would put up with the pressure the best out of anybody. If you look at Limp, right, he's like a cool, collected guy most of the time. I feel like he gives pretty straightforward answers. I don't think he really crumples under pressure. So, if anything, we're doing Alliance a service and trying to get somebody who would answer hard questions well.
I was about to say the whole time you were talking that I actually wanted to give a mild. I had no idea that Limp was the first request, but that makes a whole bunch of sense when you explain it. That I think actually Limp did an impressively good job at being level-headed, and I think
Yeah.
he was blindsided by it. And I think that he did a really good job of being an interviewee there. I think that a
Yeah.
lot of other players would have either deflected, not known how to handle it, or potentially said something bad, right?
Yeah.
So I actually think
If I wanted to like fuck over Alliance in some way, then I have no idea because I don't know Nico Baby. But like judging from what I have seen in social media, I would probably ask him if I wanted Alliance to look bad in some light. I would have asked him, like, yo, are you guys using a coach? Nobody else is using a coach, right? And I could imagine him saying like, fuck yeah, we're using a coach. It was in the rules. These dumbasses don't read, and like could have been like maybe it would have been inflammatory. Again, I don't know Nico Baby. I only see like his Twitter persona. So like I don't really know him that well. But like that would be like that could be a potential world. And then all of a sudden Alliance would look more like the bad guys in this situation. But like I personally thought Limp would be the best person
my
to
producer
ask.
hat, my producer hat, if I'm gonna put it on, if I wanted to make the
Yeah.
best show possible,
Yeah, yeah.
the interviews with Loda.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Cause Loda would not Loda would not react well. Loda's
No.
never reacted well to these things. That would 100% get the most inflammatory response. But it would obviously be really weird to ask for Loda, who's not even like their coach, right? So yeah.
Ma-
So yeah, that whole thing goes on. Sheever asks a question that she asked, is that allowed? Which I think is a fair question, seeing as like we don't have access to the same emails. The OG CEO put out some tweet about this, and he said like, like all these like managers and stuff like in this email, talent too. Like,
why would you get the rule book?
why would talent be in that email chain? We weren't. Why would we be in that email? It was also a really weird thing to say. I was just like, it was like, what a weird thing to like. Not lie. I don't think he's lying. I don't think he's trying to lie or anything. It was just like, I don't know. It's just like I remember just seeing it, and I was like, do I respond to this? And then I saw JJ responded to it. He's like, talent weren't a part of the emails, and I was like, all right, I don't need to follow this up. But I was just like, why did you need to say that? Like, are you literally just trying to add like 9 more people to deflect blame from not seeing? Like, oh, all these managers and those 9 people, they were also in the email chain. They didn't see it either. So it's not just us. They like, it's gonna give you
I'm
like
not the
2%
only one with bad
more.
reading comprehension.
Like you already are in, well, because of Notail you weren't in a good position, but I think like you already had the backing of other teams. Like, why'd you need to put talent on the list of people in your email? That was a weird thing. Shit, what was I saying? Sorry, that was just a weird side note that I couldn't get out of my head.
fucking I
Yes.
I'm interested in what happens moving forward in terms of alliance relationships with other people. I think that
Yeah.
even I would argue, and again, there's so much subjective conjecture here. I would surmise that Alliance probably did not receive that much benefit from doing this. I doubt that they won games because of it. PPD hasn't been their coach the whole time
Yeah.
during the season. I doubt it has been game changing for them.
I've heard he's been coaching for a little bit longer than his announcement, but yeah, I would agree. And like Lim said it himself, it's not like if PPD wasn't there, they'd be totally lost. Like, of course not. Like, I don't really think PPD is making the difference between a win or loss for sure.
I think the reputational hit inside of the industry with their compatriots is
Probably not great.
is probably not great for them. Because what
And
if
unless like Secret comes out and is like, yeah, he's been with us the entire time. Like, y'all are tripping right now. Like, unless somebody like that, like backs Alliance and says that they were doing it too, then yeah, probably it's not
I
going to be
I
great.
don't think that's gonna happen.
I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah,
And
I've heard there are a lot of mad players, but
yeah, there's bad players, right? But like, what if now Alliance doesn't schedule scrims with Secret or Nigma because
oh, they weren't scrimming before because European teams don't scrim other European teams because they're going to play eventually.
I
So
think they scrim after they
but
play
yeah,
their
I,
DPC
I
game.
could see. But yes, once they play their DPC match, yeah, I could see where you're going with this. Yeah, and it's who knows? There's a lot of potential different ways this could blow back. Maybe
I don't think
the
we'll see the
teams.
blowback potentially though.
Yeah,
I think
for
that a
sure.
lot of the blowback might be internal, and like the memes are gonna be eternal.
Yeah.
But
Let me just say overall, Alliance. I want to say Alliance. I'm specifically talking about their players, and we'll talk about why in a minute. That's another subject. The players, like I did lose like a little bit of respect for them off of this because I do feel like I don't have a whole lot of evidence. I'm just going off my gut. My gut says yeah, like you guys probably knew that like other teams were doing this. And so I do think it was like a bit underhanded. Competition is what competition is. It's fierce. I understand that. So I'm not gonna put too much blame on you for that. I don't know how I would react in that situation, particularly in a team environment, where like your team is dependent on you. Like you are fighting for the guy next to you as well as for yourself. And like if you do something that potentially like decreases your chance to go to TI, like, then you're also hurting the other guy's chances to go to TI. Right. So I don't know how I'd react in that sort of situation. My respect did, I lost a little bit of respect for the Alliance players. But then I also simultaneously like them more because of their social media reactions to Notail being so inflammatory. Because they memed and they got mad, which to me anyway was in some ways a reaction of people who felt like they didn't do anything wrong, which is fair because they did not cheat. So, and Notail did go way over the line in that regard. So I thought their responses were pretty funny, honestly. I actually liked the Alliance players more because of that.
yeah, I like
So
that
it's
they
a
share
weird balance,
personality. I think
Yeah.
that I don't know if I would necessarily lose respect. I think that I understand what you're saying, but I could also just as easily make the argument that imagine you're in a team environment. Excuse me. Is it really your choice? This is probably something that's being now dictated by either management or coaches. I would assume.
Players have a lot of power when it comes to these sort of things. There's no way that like if anything, it's like a players and this sort of the relationship is more like a king and their advisors. Maybe they could be persuaded to do something. But ultimately they have the power to say yes or no to these sort of things. So I feel like ultimately it was their decision to make. That is how I view it anyway. Maybe it's not true, but I've always viewed players having the most power in this scene, and I think that's mostly been true
Yeah,
throughout
I think Valve backs
Dota's
that up
history.
time and time again.
Yeah, Valve has done a very good job of empowering the players. So much so that I think at times it has actually been somewhat bad for the ecosystem that it's swung too far. But I think for the most part, compared to other ecosystems, Dota by far is one of the best because of Valve empowering the players rather than the teams or, like or talent or tournament organizers. Like they put players first. And I think that's good. That's a good philosophy.
Hey man, I do agree with that. I wish that we almost
Any
disagreed
last
more.
thoughts on that bit? Because I got one more bit of drama.
You got one more bit of drama? Let's hit that
Yeah.
one more bit of drama. I am excited. I'm not excited. That's the wrong word. I'm interested to see what happens moving forward, and if there are any repercussions for ESL and DreamHack. I think the answer is absolutely not, because it doesn't make sense business wise. They got the little slap on the
Mhm.
wrist, but like, surely this is now annoying to Valve, who have to be like, oh,
Yeah.
fuck, we got to deal with this. Like, someone shit the bed. Um, I think going forward now, it's very clear though that this is not the intention, not the rule, and not the future of Dota, right?
Fucking ESL, man. Like, why? Like honestly, I think that the show we put on has been very good. I think the
It's the
seasons,
best DPC show, especially the DreamHack one, because it's a little
I
bit
mean,
it's a little more loose than the ESL one.
yes, I would agree that the DreamHack show, host notwithstanding, host notwithstanding, Shiver is the best Dota host. The I'm only saying that because obviously, for those who don't know, I'm hosting the ESL side of things. But yes, the DreamHack show is much better, partly because of Shiver, and then also partly because
And the
it's a lot
cowbell.
more loose. The cowbell, the
I
noises,
I would, you
but
know what, let me just sink this right in. 10 to 20% less soundboard.
yeah, I know, I agree, I agree, I would,
It it,
I would
it,
agree
it
with that.
loses it being funny or good when it's overused.
Yeah,
It's my soundboard
I agree.
note.
I was also going to make that note. Maybe we should stop doing after the break every single time we go to a break. You know, um, but
Anywho, I'm
yeah.
getting off
And
topic.
but why did you need to do that? Oh, it's such a dumb, stupid mistake. You literally just could have left the rule set as it is in every other region, and boom. I think I personally felt like you were guaranteed to get the next year as well, because I thought the product that was made is only really competed by potentially PGL, but I still think that our show was fantastic.
Your show has
Production
way better
wise, like
graphics and you have more interesting
very.
talent.
All right, thank you, Joey. Jesus.
I can say that. You probably shouldn't say that. I can say that.
I,
Those are my opinions, not the show's.
I like all the talent that I work with.
Tsunami's one of my best friends.
All right, is that it?
Yes. Well, what were you gonna say
Okay.
before we wrap up? Because I have
Okay.
to get back to some meetings.
Okay. I will try and make this quick. But so that entire thing happens, and apparently, some people were not happy with the talent after this whole debacle.
Why? What would you
Some
have done?
people were not happy.
Did
Yes.
talent inflame anything? I mean, Fogged made a funny tweet.
No, well, the interview in particular was called into question. Did you feel like the interview was untoward, mean,
The
harsh?
I think the interview was not at all. No. In short, no. I think that
Okay.
Shiver probably has never done anything that direct or potentially aggressive before, and she was a little uncomfortable with it. I think that you guys actually probably went a little bit light on the situation, and I do think that interviews should be interviews, right? Like,
Yes, you should get a reaction out of somebody, get something genuine out of them, not just how was your game?
I don't give a fuck about most post game interviews
Yep.
because it's hard to they feel kind of boilerplate. They feel pretty standard, right? Like, let's ask some questions from the game. Let's ask some questions how maybe you're doing. Like, oh, hey, is it snowing outside, puppy? Haha, so fun, right? Like, there really isn't much meat there. And that's not to say that every interview should be a piece of investigative journalism, right? But
No.
it should be an opportunity to have a candid conversation with this team, because if you're interviewing LeBron after a Lakers game and there's a scandal going on, you ask him about it. You don't go, "So LeBron, man, you those 5 free throws you missed, what do you think about that?" Or like that's not what happens, right? And most Dota postgame interviews, you don't have a lot to talk about. So the questions are like, hey, Koikfa, why didn't you put a neutral item on the bear? That's kind of interesting. That's kind of interesting, but more often than not, there isn't a lot of meat to talk about. And this is probably
we never asked the question like, hey, we think that this guy lost you the game. Like, how do you feel about that? Like that is a question that could very absolutely be asked, but like, no way that Dota is ever gonna be that real. We'll never ask that question. That is way too inflammatory and direct.
Yeah. Like, hey, do you think your mid matchup being way too passive is what caused you to just lose the game? No.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm okay. I'm glad you said that, because I also thought that we we didn't like super softball it or anything. We did talk about it, but I thought we were pretty even-handed, and I felt anyway that so I followed up Shiva's question and asked if Limp, if he knew if any other teams were using a coach. I thought that was a perfectly fair question to ask. That was my softball question. Okay. But apparently some people were unhappy with that interview. And that would be the Alliance Management. Alliance Management was not happy. And I'm going to say management for the rest of this podcast, by the way. The management was not happy with that podcast and decided to go ahead and talk to both talent as well as trying to get a hold of our superiors to file a complaint about our... I don't know, whatever you want to call it, the way we conducted our interview or whatever. And this is actually the second time that management has filed a complaint with our bosses about the show. So I take my livelihood.
Oh, never mind. I know what that is. Okay, go on.
I take my livelihood very seriously. It's one of the best things in my life. One of the 3 things that I hold like very, very close to me. And one of those things is my friends as well, and I consider many of the colleagues that I've worked with my friends. So
I was going to say Ellie and your pecs, but I guess okay.
Ellie is the number 1 thing on that list. So I consider it like a very grave sin to go after someone's livelihood. You must have like really think that they really deserve that. But management decided to file complaints about the way we do our show, and that obviously you can tell has made me rather mad. Mostly because I know it's not the first time that this has happened. It's the second time this season, but I know we're not the only people that management has contacted to try and get us fired from our jobs. And you know what's funny is management wanted to know who decided on Limp. Well, I was one of them. I'll tell you right now, if they're listening, I was one of them who pushed for Limp. Because, again, as I said, I thought it would be good for you. I thought it would help you. Because I think, my judgment of him, which usually I feel like my judgment is pretty good of people, is that he is relatively unflappable, and he's going to give a pretty good response to this sort of thing.
Did a good job.
I wanted him to not fuck up. I'm going to ask a hard question, but I don't want him to fucking stumble over the line, okay? I don't want that out of him. I would feel bad about that, but I do feel it's my job to ask that question. You know what the fucking hardball question was, Joey? The softball was, do you know of any other teams that are also using a coach in-game? To which Limp responded, no, I don't know. I don't really talk to other teams. I checked just before
Great
this
answer.
podcast. Yeah. I thought, no was like a little sus. I was like, whoa. When he first said that, I was like, whoa. And then he said, I don't know. So no, I don't know. Like, yeah, okay, then that's combined together. And then he
What's
said, I don't really talk to other teams, and I was like, that's totally fair.
what's the hardball?
The hardball question, which is if he just straight up said no, no, I don't think any other teams are going to use it. The hardball question was, don't you think that it is against the spirit and integrity of competition to utilize something that you know other teams are not? Because I think that's a fair but hardball question, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that question would have been totally out of line? Even like if I say even if it's in the rules, do you think that it's against the spirit of competition and integrity for you to be able to use something that you know other people are not aware of?
I'm thinking. My gut reaction is no, absolutely not. That feels like a fair question. And I'm trying to see if there's any counterpoint I can make in my head.
Yeah, I
No.
think that's a fair question
I
too.
think you should I
You know
think
why?
blanket you should be able to ask the players whatever you want to.
Yes. And part of the reason why I feel like that's a fair question is because hard questions do hard questions are hard because you have to give usually a very real answer. And that like will expose who you are as a person. That can be both good and bad. Hard-hitting questions can expose who you are on the inside, right? And if you expose the truth about yourself and you are good, then it's going to be a good answer. And if you are bad and you admit to certain things that you don't want to admit to, then it's a bad answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that's a fair question because what I'm expecting to hear is uh, it is not against the rules. We checked extensively that it wasn't against the rules, and I don't think it's at all against the integrity of the competition for me to be able to utilize something that other people in whether or not they know about this is entirely up to them and whether or not they read their emails. And I think it's absolutely fair for us to be able to utilize that because this is an advantage that has been given to us by the tournament organizer and we are abiding by those rules.
I wouldn't even call it an
And I would
advantage.
have said,
Yeah, it's just in the rules.
right? That and I would have been like, that's a sick answer, right? Like that literally would have been my response. Is like awesome. Like I'm glad to hear it. Thank you so much, Limp. Right? I didn't ask that hard hitting question, partially because I know Alliance management was already unhappy with us, but also because I was a little bit nervous about asking the question because again, I do not want to get a bad answer. I don't because I don't have any reason to dislike the Alliance players. I've liked all my interactions with Limp. I think he's a cool guy. I quite like Hanskin quite a bit.
I love that NIP
I
too.
quite like FNG. He was one of the first people I was able to do an interview with, and he was a super nice guy. He's been always very sweet to me. Like I don't want them to have a bad response, right? So like I'm even like I'll admit it. Like I did not ask the hard hitting question in part because like I'm a pussy and like I didn't want to do that. Like I didn't want to get a potential like Reddit thread made out about them. I did not want them for their sake. And I feel like in part like I did a poor job. Like I did a bad job doing my job by not asking that question.
I think
But
you
he
might
also
feel
didn't
that
say
way.
no. He said, I don't know. I don't talk to other teams. And so, like, that absolves him of the question, no matter what.
Mhm.
Like, I can't ask that question unless he says no.
Part of the reason you
So,
might feel that way is because it's so out of the ordinary to be asking these questions in the first place because generally things are
mhm.
so like fluffy and not important and not like newsworthy, right? Like I think that
Yeah.
these interviews are seldom
Also,
newsworthy.
I shouldn't have used pussy. I should have used coward. Apologies. That's, just part of my
We just talked
language.
about that in Notail. God
I
damn.
know.
Um,
I'm sorry.
I watched your eyes as you said it, and I'm like, oh man, Joey's gonna beat
I
me
know.
up.
I'm trying to curb out certain words. You're also going to hear me say the R word sometimes. I'm trying to carve it out of my language.
Um, yeah, let's make fun of you now. Someone get the pitchforks. Um, uh, shit.
uh,
No, I think that you should be able to basically ask whatever you want of the players. And also, did you consider like, is there an email for talent about what you can and can't say in interviews?
no.
No, there's no
No,
email
there
rule set.
isn't.
Okay.
No,
I
I
just want
mean
I just want to make sure you
maybe I
didn't miss
wasn't
it.
included. Maybe I wasn't included in the email
I
chain
just want to
though.
make sure.
So
What if you
that's entirely
emailed
possible.
all of the teams the interview questions?
True. I should have ran the questions by them first. True. 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 True.
That's
Like journalists do with the president in their scripted interviews.
that's kind of upsetting for me to hear.
Oh
And
yeah, it was very upsetting for me to hear as well.
it's upsetting for me to hear, and I understand that my employment at Team Liquid makes me someone who is like technically a competitor. So obviously there is a bias outside of being a fan and someone who likes to, talk about Dota. But I while I can put myself in the situation where no one wants to have their players potentially being taken advantage of and blindsided, it's just they're doing an interview.
Yeah, you're doing an interview.
They're doing an interview.
Talent did a ranking of your team. It's you guys knocked that out of the park. Talk some friendly banter back. You know, talent predictions, Omega lol. Do that. Like you guys are winning. What? Why are you mad? You guys are mad about an interview and predictions done by talent in a new patch right after you bombed out of the group stage. Like, what are you expecting? Like the entire idea that talent have some sort of grudge against your team or your players is insane. For the last time, I don't care about any of you guys. I really fucking don't. A lot of you guys are fucking millionaires or 100,000aires. Like, I don't give a shit if you guys place first at TI or eighth. Like,
You're
whatever.
biased. You want Will to do well.
I'm Liquid is legitimately the only team that I have ever been biased for. Sorry, Blitz teams in general because he's my best friend. But I feel like in many ways, I don't see a whole lot of comments saying that I'm very Liquid biased. I see it all the time about EG. I see it all the time when I praise OG or I praise Nigma. Way more of those teams than I do Liquid. Because I feel that I do a very even job. If anything, I go hard on Liquid sometimes because I know that they could take a joke. I know that Insania's gonna find a joke at his expense in a cast funny, as is William. So like I if anything, I can go harder at them.
Do you think that part of this comes from the fact that because
But apparently Alliance, I gotta go super soft. So
see, now you're being inflammatory. Do you think part of this comes from the sense that since the scene has kind of grown up together and there are really blurry, messy lines between team and talent, which I don't think necessarily exist in parallel fields. I think it's really common in esports for like talent to be ex-players or talent to be like friends with teams or no management, no players, but like I feel like it almost makes it hard to be objective. You're not just someone who's coming in to like do a job, like these people and have been around them for literally years and years of your life, right?
No, I don't think that at all because like sports commentators, they have personal relationships with players that makes their commentary better. They're able to talk about personal anecdotes. That's why ex-players are usually the best one because they have the most personal and the best anecdotes in that regard. There are many ex-players on all fields that go into the talent side of things. I think the blurrier line actually lies in team owners and players, right? Because very often team owners are now former players. That is actually the blurry line in esports in general, but Dota especially. I think that's the weird line, right? Because like I mean, let's be honest, like I'm just not expecting Optic CEO or something to like call up my boss because, like I interviewed their player in a somewhat direct way. I'm just not expecting that because I'm expecting like a layer of professionalism to understand that like I'm just doing my job and he's just doing his job and there's no like personal feelings there. But like apparently I feel like that's where the blurry line is. But I don't know.
Maybe you have to
Like
shit on other teams more. Maybe you have
I
to be
mean, I
harder to other
personally,
teams. Maybe they feel singled out.
I mean, maybe, but like, I don't know. Have you seen me talk about hippomaniacs? Like Hippomaniac, like if Hippomaniacs emailed me my boss, I'd understand. I'd be like, fuck, like I did kind of go hard on them sometimes. Like they're just kids going to school and trying to play Dota part time. Like I really shouldn't make fun of them. And like I am aware of that. I'm trying, and I that's why I frequently bring that up. Like, but at the same time, it is funny that they have yet to win a single series in 2 seasons. You know, like that's funny because you should have been out last season, but because of cheating and stuff, like it's prolonged misery. They have to put up with this again. You know, it's like oof. Like if Hippomaniacs messes my like, well, you're right. I've gone too far. Understandable. Have a good day.
Well,
But I don't know, man.
um, cool. I'm
I
just thinking
promised
about.
somebody this episode was going to be a banger.
I'm
Somebody
just
was
thinking about a
like,
lot
"You
of
guys got
characters.
some good information. Talk about this podcast." I was like, "Oh yeah,
God,
just you wait."
this could be the first one in a while where someone should just be reminded of the cap no Reddit rule.
Yeah, I ain't trying to start shit. I just I am starting to. Yeah, I'm mostly just halfway venting to Joey, and also like legitimately, I do think there is a problem here, and that bothers me. So I'm gonna be honest on this podcast.
I'm gonna be honest too.
Yeah.
Alliance is not gonna win a series at the major.
Whoa. All right, Joey's the one who definitely needs to get fired. What the fuck?
Just gonna say it.
Wait, you think they're gonna go? So they're gonna get to playoffs, right? They're going directly to playoffs. You think they're just
Unless
gonna
they
boom, boom, get
lose to
knocked
Hellbear
out?
Smashers,
No.
they're gonna go directly to playoffs, and they're gonna
Listen,
lose two series.
I gained a lot of confidence in Alliance, right? This is actually a pretty hard hitting question. When we straight up, it wasn't even a question, but Lip like redirected it, which was super smooth. BSJ, he overheard BSJ talking about like, I just don't think Alliance is going to win majors with this kind of strategy, right? Which is basically they have developed an archetype in drafting, and that you could very much see it coming. Not just DK3, but like strength cores across the board, the kind of cores that Nico Baby's going to be playing, what their drafting archetype. Like it's kind of predictable, but goddamn, it's working, right? And Limp said, like it's important for us to be able to get like first or second in this group stage. So like being reliable and predictable like is a good thing, but when it comes to major time, we know that's not going to be reliable, and we're absolutely going to get a lot more versatile, and we're going to be working on that now that we've secured ourselves this position, which I thought was big brain 200 IQ smart, right? That's the kind of good shit I want to hear, you know. So I have gained a lot of confidence, and I actually think Alliance will do much better this season compared to last, not just because they're automatically in playoffs.
They're gonna lose two best of threes.
Damn.
Quote me later. Quote me later.
All right.
And then everyone's gonna hate you
Joey.
again. I really wanted to see the timeline though, where Secret got relegated.
There's no way Europe. There's no way Europe fucks up another major like they did the last one.
Europe's gonna fuck up another major.
No.
I really wanted to see Secret get relegated though, just for the memes.
Can you imagine? We're going to TI, but also what if you like won TI, but then like the next year starts and you're in lower division, the TI champions playing against like no bounty hunter, like oh fuck, like what? How did this happen?
That's some good shit. I know that so much other stuff happened that wasn't even this over the course of the last 48 hours. And that is going to be a topic for next time. And you can hear me talk about a $20 price point for a thing that I put a lot of work into.
Ooh.
And you can hear me talk about how unhappy I am about the EGRTZ spray. But not now. Because there's a time and a place.
That's another spicy topic. Good sign pull podcast back to back. It's coming.
Yep, we'll see you next week. I will remember to read my emails from Cap so that I know when to record. And here you go for the people, right?
Mm-hmm.